Hey there, I'm Mike Dunn with Gaming Trend, and today we have Alex Neumann of AKN Designs. He's got a new game that's about to hit the market that's been getting some traction overseas and in various markets. Um, Alex, welcome, and tell us a little bit about you and your game Misfits.
Yeah. So hi, Mike, and hello to everyone at Gaming Trend. My name is Alexander. I'm a graphic designer by trade. I'm 29 years old. I developed a stacking game, a win stacking game. It's for any age, really. But I will say it's a little bit more than what you might be used to of a previous stacking game. So there's more weird and obscure shapes. My design aesthetics definitely go through into the game. It's a beautiful game. It's absolutely meant for your coffee table. And yeah, it's one of the it's our first game that I've developed, and it's hitting the market. It's arriving this week actually into the UK, but we are shipping out to the EU, Canada, and the US as well.
Okay, yeah, I just navigated to your website real quick and thought we'd take a look at it while we're talking. So
Sure.
this is a stacking game, kind of
Yes.
like I guess kind of like Jenga, but you're not unstacking, you're stacking, right?
Yeah, so the object of the game is everyone gets 10 blocks each. So this is a great image that you could kind of see what the packaging is. Again, beautiful array, and it's kind of neatly put all together into this sort of almost puzzle-like form. There's some other bits of this game as well, but this image as well is great. That it kind of shows you how the stacking goes. Again, 10 blocks per player. The object of the game is to try and get rid of your blocks in your hands. So each person takes one block per turn and stacks it into the central tower. But if any blocks fall during your turn, you have to collect those pieces. So if you can imagine, as this thing keeps on being built, the tower becomes more and more precarious. Gravity is kind of taking over, and you're more at risk for more blocks to fall, right? So as it stacks, your odds and your risks just get ever that much more intense. So as you can imagine, the game starts pretty smooth, pretty chill, but as you get into it, like people really get like enamored and just like, oh my gosh, this tower, it's like it's getting too crazy, and they're like sweating it. Yeah, so it's just been fantastic, the response that we've had so far.
Awesome. So I guess it would be kind of like a hand elimination game. Like if these blocks were cards, the goal is to get all of the blocks out of your hand, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah. So, and I'm Canadian, and so this game is a very Canadian affair. No one is eliminated in this game, so no one is a loser. Everyone's a winner. So, uh, but yes. So there is. I mean, the first person to successfully put their 10 blocks into the tower wins the game. You could theoretically have a second or third player, come into sort of the ranks and play for second or for third, wins, if you want to call it that. But yeah, there's no one that like, for example, if any of the blocks fall during a turn, you're never eliminated from the game entirely. So
Okay, so technically, it says 2 to 4 players, but
yeah,
I guess you were describing more of a two-player version of the game. So I'm assuming
yes.
there are 20 blocks in the box.
No, there are 40 altogether.
40.
So
Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
you could play up that you could play up to four just straight out of the box, and I imagine if you had multiple boxes, you could probably even expand it, right?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the original prototype, the very first iteration of this game, when it was just kind of more of an idea, that was 80 pieces. And if you can imagine, that was pretty wild to kind of see the towers that were built. But yes, for more commercial reasons and just to actually like get this game out to people,
Right.
realistically 40 was kind of like the cutoff. And you're right
Yeah,
to
yeah.
say,
80 pieces would be like, here's your suitcase full of wood.
right, exactly. So, and
Might be a
here's a
little over much.
yeah, and here's the shipping charge with it, and like someone croaked
Right,
over,
right,
right? Yeah.
right.
So
Hey, there's always expansions, man. There's always expansions, right?
right, exactly, and that's
You've
the
got
thing that
other
I
shapes.
I really like about this game is that I mean, the process to which the blocks are made are all CNC woodcut. So that actually allows for a complete flexibility of the kind of shapes that you could make. So in future iterations, we could completely change all the shapes that are there. You know, still have 40 blocks, but it could be something completely new and different in that sense. So that's what I'm really excited for, actually, is for the future and kind of the malleability and the flexibility of this game going forward. There might be some pieces that, you know, just because they're so iconic in the shape, that's kind of like the identity of this game. But yeah, some of the reactions there are pretty priceless. And just people really just enjoying like all the different weird and obscure towers that can be built. Because that's the thing as well that we find is that every game is always different, just with innately with all these different shapes. No tower is the same. And so then there's this like very great flexibility of again what potential the shapes could be, but also what towers could be built, and what kind of play could be made. Right, like you could be really safe about everything, like have a tower that is really like down to the ground. But then as you keep on going, you could be like more. You know, you look to sabotage your next player, and you know, like all these different shapes. You know, they're some people might find sort of strategy with them, you know, like the donut shape that we have here, like that might be really difficult to try and put on like a shape that's really square. Triangles are great, for example, because you can just put them on top and like stop a block or stop some sort of play. So it can be both cooperative and also pretty cunning as well. So
So yeah, I was actually about to say that. It sounds like it can easily shift back and forth between cooperative and player versus player like that.
yeah. And if you can imagine, that's perfect for like a group of friends, a group of family, or something like that. They like want to work together, but then they also want to just like undercut, you know, the sister or the best friend or whatever in you know a gentle way.
Right.
So so yeah, so it's been we've had a really great response. People just really gravitate to the design aspects, but just all the unique shapes. And quite frankly, you know, when I set out to design this, um, I kind of saw that there's like a sea of card and board games that are out there, but in the space of like dexterity or stacking games, I mean there are, you know, I'm sure we both know a little bit more, but fundamentally in the general public, the most familiar game or the game that most people go to is Jenga, and
Is
that's about
Jenga?
it,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I mean, there might be like Bowsack or Junkar or some of these other games, but fundamentally, like for most people, it's Jenga and that's it, right? And
Right.
so for me, I just felt, you know what? I think there's a little bit more than just rectangular shapes. Why not just like play around with the different configurations, you know? And I'm sure there's various ways that you could kind of manipulate this so it's not just like taking blocks from you know the bottom bit of the tower and moving it up. And quite frankly, in that respect, if you scroll down the page, we also received an endorsement from Leslie
From the
Scott.
inventor of
Oh,
Jenga. There you
there we
go.
go. Speak of the devil. So, but yeah, she was super on board. Funnily, there was a bit of a side story with like getting the quote from her is quite funny. But yeah, like we've had really great industry support. I've actually demoed this at a number of locations. Even prior to the launch, just as like opportunities to come. So there was a opportunity at Somerset House, which is a UK National Museum, and they do a board game like festival every year called Now Play This. And so in 2018, I believe, way back in the earlier genesis of this game, they were already like, "This is really cool. Like, can we see this? Can this be part of our exhibit?" And so also in the testimonials there is some quotes from the lead curator. But yeah, it just
Nice.
the you know, and I did this as a I used to work for Whole Foods as just like a part-time job, and I ended up going to the regional exec team, like doing this demo. So yeah, there's just been many threads, and I'm so like the journey of this has been so interesting to see, but also so joyful, and I'm just so happy to see where it goes.
So I was looking at the website earlier,
Hmm.
and a few things really kind of struck me. One, the simplicity of the design,
Yeah,
and just like the fact that you even go out and say we don't really have a rule book. Like
yeah,
we can say the rules in like a sentence or two.
yeah,
Um, and it kind of lends that feeling of wow, this feels like a game that has been out for years already, right? Like it's got kind of has a timeless quality.
yeah.
I can only imagine that Leslie Scott saw this game and was like, "Man, why didn't I think of
Right.
that?" Right, right. No,
Maybe she
not to
was.
yeah,
Yeah,
not to slight
yeah.
Jenga and her invention.
Well,
And then another thing that I really liked was how you basically kind of focus on each shape on your
yeah,
site and talk about it and give it like you have metrics on here. Like this
yeah,
is it's super cool. Like it's everything you need to know about the game is here,
yeah.
and there's so much more. It's very nice.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, that's been a labor of love. That's been a big project of this past year. I kind of always took a stab at the website design and tried to make anything. But I think one thing that has been really important for me as well, as a business owner, is also just to understand when to delegate tasks
Hmm.
and when you can say, you know what, I'm a designer. I think I can make this, but I also think that it might be better off to, give this off to someone else that
Right.
is a little bit further off, and may not be as dear, as the project. So, and yeah, and we actually, I was very lucky. There was like a grant opportunity here in Canada, so they covered like the fee for a designer to like get into the mix. So actually, there's a Vancouver agency called Zach, and they were able to design the website. And we really
Nice.
methodically looked at the different aspects of like what can we bring to the website and like imbue and kind of communicate about this game.
Very nice. Very
Yeah,
nice. Yeah, I mean, as a former designer myself, like the one thing that I've always valued is economy of design.
yeah,
It's it's I've always been more impressed by what people take away than what
yeah,
they leave,
yeah,
right? And this feels very tight.
yeah.
And I'm not talking about the website. I'm talking about what
The
I'm seeing of
game.
the game. Yeah,
Yeah.
the website is equally tight. so, um, so yeah, good job finding the right people for that.
Well, thank you.
That actually brings me to my next question. Now,
Sure.
um, did you crowdfund this at all? Did you how describe to me the steps that you've taken to bring this to market? Because um, like a lot of first time designers, they tend to kind of go to the Kickstarter or GameFound BackerKit kind of route, or they sell their concept to a larger publisher.
Yeah.
Um, it I guess are talk about your process, kind of getting from concept to your pending like release,
Sure.
and whether what kind of help you received along the way. And I'm guessing you're self publishing this. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty well.
Yeah. Wow.
So I mean, we have all the bits and bobs, but fundamentally, it's self-published. So, yeah, it's a labor of love.
Kudos, man.
um,
Kudos.
Yeah, well,
That's
and we've had publishers ask if they want to put our game under a label, but I've kind of flatly refused. Not because I'm a stubborn designer, but I also think I wanted to see this through, right? Like this for me,
yeah.
it's also just a challenge to see like, okay, as an individual that is more creatively minded, can I put something out into the world and make it something that is something that people want to like appreciate and bring joy into the life, right? So
And I
uh,
imagine this process has taken you out of your comfort zone more than a few times.
oh my God, the amount of situations I've been where I'm like, why am I doing this? Where am I? Like, I'm in the middle of Germany in the back roads, like, on the Autobahn in a
Right.
electric vehicle that can go 100 kilometers an hour, like going grinding speeds comparatively to everyone else. Like, what am I doing with my life right now? Right. But you just end up in these strange situations. But, as an entrepreneur, really, it's just like you kind of have to do it and no one else will do it. Right. And
Yep.
that's actually, I mean, at the time, it's obviously really stressful. And you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But it's kind of the fun of it as well, right? Like,
Right.
are you going to be on the Autobahn going 100 kilometers an hour, like in a 9 to 5 job? Probably not. But, this is kind of what it ends up being, right? So, yeah, there's so many stories Mike should share of you of just like trying to get this out the door, or something
Right.
has gone off, and it's a trade show is looming, or some sort of promotional event, or the manufacturer has said, "Oh gosh, this has now happened." But this is what it is. Go through the tumbles, and you hope by the end of it that something comes out of it. So, and
Nice.
by all means, it feels that way. So I'm very, very excited. So yeah.
So how did you land on game design?
Yeah. So
Was it
we
just you had an
went.
idea and you're like, I have to make this happen?
Yeah. Well. So sorry. Do you want me to like how I ended up on the website, or how did I
No,
end up
no.
with the
How?
game?
Yeah, like how did you? I know you mentioned that you have a design background. How did
Yes.
you? How did you? How did you go from like graphic design to making your own board tabletop game?
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's a very strange way of going about things, isn't it? A bit tangential.
Yep.
But so in my last year of my studies as a graphic designer, so I studied in the UK. I'm Canadian born, but I was in the UK on a student visa. And we submitted for this design competition. And there's multiple categories you could submit to. And the category that I submitted to was a brief developed by Hasbro and the design committee. So the Hasbro was searching for the next party game, and they were looking for students to submit to this competition and figure out what that next party game would be. My background in terms of board games prior to that, I mean, my family has played some games. I would say more on my dad's side. He is German, so innately there's a sort of, I think there's a very strong tradition of tabletop games within Germany and also in just German
Oh
families as
yeah.
well.
Oh yeah.
And so there's definitely that element playing into it. And I thought, you know what, like I've actually, I've always thought about like making my own board game, and like why don't we just use this opportunity to like try it out? And worst case, if it doesn't work out, so be it. We move it on. We say it's a nice portfolio piece, and so
Nice.
be it. I submitted to the competition, and I didn't win, but I was kind of glad because I just got this sneaking suspicion that the students' work was not properly credited. And so for me, I just felt, you know what, like I think I'm happy with the result and the work that I put in, and it doesn't matter whether or not I need that affirmation from the design competition. And actually, you know what? Like a lot of my students or like fellow students and professors, after doing a lot of this in-depth development with me, they're like, "This
Mhm.
is actually a really cool thing. Like this, you've made
Yeah.
something that's really like really simple, really back to basics. Like anyone can pick up and play." Like there's something really interesting here, Alexander. Like
Mhm.
just I encourage you. I remember having a very clear conversation with one of my professors, and he said, yeah, like why don't you just like take this to the next step and just like make this into like your graduation showpiece, or just like make it into a little bit more than just like a prototype that you had. And so did that and made this like very designery, like super like bindery box, like maple wood, like all the stops,
Nice.
every sort
Nice.
of indulgence you could as a graphic designer, right? And yeah, it just like it kept on attracting more and more attention. And then my university actually reached out to me after I finished my student visa, and they said, "Hey, like, you've made this really cool game, and we have this opportunity for young entrepreneurs that have just graduated to come back for 2 years, what we have called as a graduate entrepreneur visa." Um,
Ooh.
and so I was like, "Hey, that's actually like to come back to London or the United Kingdom. Like, hell yeah, I'd
Yeah,
love to do
that sounds
that.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds pretty cool."
Twist
Um,
my arm. Twist my arm.
right. So I was actually at that time I was working part time at Whole Foods, and so it worked really well because Whole Foods actually has locations in the UK as well.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So it was just very easy for me to be like, okay, you know what? I can just transfer the job over. Can start working on the game on the other side of the pond, and then just kind of take it from there, right?
Yeah. See where it goes.
See where it goes. Now, those 2 years were probably the most challenging years because it was 2019 to 2021.
Oh.
So not the greatest years to pick
Mm,
in any
no.
years to like try and launch a business, right? But I didn't know that, right? Like no
Right.
one knew that there
No
was
one
going to be
knew
this
that.
global pandemic
Right.
during those 2 years, this particularly in the latter half, anyway. And so I went to Eschenspiel, which of course is the big German trade show in 2019. We're planning for a Kickstarter the following year,
Oh, that was the
and
biggest year they had too, if I recall.
yes,
Yeah,
right.
like
So
that
like
was that was like that was when they hit their record number of attendance, and
right,
then
so
and then
we
this
got this
year
big
is the year that came closest to that. So
yeah, yeah. So 2019, we made this big splash. People really gravitated towards the game, and for me as well, what was really interesting to note was, okay, I had students, professors, and industry play this game, but okay, let's put this in the context of individuals that have not seen this game,
right.
don't know English, because many attendees don't actually speak English, they'll speak German, Dutch, or French, or whatever.
Hmm.
So have a language barrier, have no familiarity, and we're just there at the trade show and just like hope for the best, right? But
Play testing.
right, playtesting, but like in a brutal sense,
Yeah,
very brutal, because
throw
they
you're
can
in the deep end. You just waded into the deep end of the pool there. So
right, and
yeah.
they could just so easily just walk away from a booth and be like, that's from me, like didn't like it. But
Mhm.
weirdly we had people just keep coming back to our booth and being like, this thing, like I'm addicted, like I can't get enough of
Nice.
this. It's like I want to keep on playing. And we actually had someone in 2020 reach out and be like, I still distinctly remember playing this game. Like out of all the games at Ashton's Field, this was like the one that like my friends and I couldn't get enough of. And yeah, and then I also went to like a retailer based show in January of 2020, and that was also really good as well. That was UK retailer focused, and we had some really serious offers as well. We had a brand which has now been folded into Tesco called Paper Chase. So they're kind of
Okay.
like Barnes and Nobles, but a little bit more stationary based for your American folks. And National Gallery of Victoria in Australia was also interested as well.
Very nice.
Uncommon Goods in America. So anyway, just really good response. And again, we were looking to do this Kickstarter, but as the pandemic went on and the opportunity to demo the game in a safe and healthy and in a way that wouldn't jeopardize people, just wasn't tenable, right?
Right.
I did do a demo just more as like an internal thing within my employer, so Whole Foods, and that was really good. We ended up really meeting with the exec team at Whole Foods because of that opportunity. So
Interesting.
that was like, I don't know how that happened, but just on a wider basis, we felt, you know what, this is not right. So I kind of just waited out until I felt like it was safe to demo. People would be kind of back to the tabletop conventions, and so for myself, I thought, right, 2023, hopefully coast is clear, nothing is kind of crazy, or no other pandemic will come. And so then it was like, right, let's like put this out in the world. And by this point, I've been a bit impatient, and
Yeah,
so because it's been a while at this point, and so
absolutely.
I kind of put the risk on myself, and I also a lot of this was a lot of experimentation, and I felt like a Kickstarter might actually set yourself to fail a little bit in
Mhm.
that there's only this window of time that you will play or have the ability to market this game. Yes, there's a bunch of confines with it, but like we don't really have review copies. We don't have
Right.
we don't really have much of marketing. People don't know about this thing. It's been like 4 years since like a major trade show has happened.
Hmm.
So what I did was I just fronted basically the initial run of 250 units, and I did that with some help also from like a loan opportunity here in Canada, and yeah, we like that's what we've been doing since Christmas. Really, is just selling pre-orders, or in the lead up to Christmas rather. So we're
Hmm.
selling pre-orders, but now finally the units are available. And look, like we have a retailer. Actually, in fact, this week they went from initially wanting 12 units in their shops to now 48. So they
Nice.
just upped their order like by almost triple, and like I don't know if we could have had those opportunities if I went through a
Right.
Kickstarter, right? So
I imagine this would have been a hard one to kickstart because it's
yeah,
not like all the chunky euros and stuff that you typically see on Kickstarter.
yeah,
So like I think you did the right thing.
yeah.
And I have a feeling we're gonna see this game hit more shelves in the coming year. Um,
Oh, well, I appreciate that, Mike. I mean, I think it really does have like a visual appeal and a grab to it. And again, just like when I was at the German trade show in 2019, despite the language barriers, despite generational gaps, like people are still able to come together and still
mhm.
play it. Like we kind of played with like some weird sign language in English and German, and just kind of hoped that we could kind of communicate. But ultimately, it didn't matter. Like people were able to understand and get the game just like that. Like
Nice,
it's immediate. It's the first game as good as the last, and it's just something that like I think as you get into it, you actually get more and more addicted, because then you're like, oh, here are the other possibilities I could play. Oh, I can now like sabotage my friend over there. I can undercut him. Oh, I can do this move. So
nice, nice. Well, I'm looking forward to getting our hands on it for Gaming Trend so that we can get a review
yes,
going for
absolutely.
you.
Please.
And yeah, let's we'll definitely keep everybody posted on Gaming Trend when this is available
Yeah.
here in the U.S. And yeah, it looks great. I gotta ask, you got another game in the works after this? You
Oh,
you
this
thinking
is always the
ahead?
question. Yeah, so I mean, to be honest, no, not this time. This is my baby, and it's very
You're
much.
still riding this roller coaster.
Yeah, I
You're not thinking
am.
of the next one, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
man, I'm in my 20s. Like, this is enough.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah,
Well, thanks, Alex or Alexander,
doesn't
whichever
matter.
you prefer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, we'll keep our eyes peeled for this one coming forward. Thanks for talking with us.
Thank you so much for your time, Mike. I really appreciate it.